Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Toilets to Tenants meeting. I'm Nina Cole, and I've been part of this group for, I guess we started this, 4 years ago, Vanessa?
I think so.
Yeah. So we're just going to, today we've got Kacy Martinez coming from TJC Management. And so she'll be talking a little bit about property management in the time of COVID, some of the things that they're seeing. And then we're also going to talk about some of the regulation that's coming along the pike that will affect landlords and their rentals. And so I think that's something important for us all to know. And we'll probably make our next session specifically on that topic. Vanessa, do you want to go ahead and give your background? Oh, I forgot to say I am a realtor. So if anybody needs help selling or buying rentals or any other kind of property, I would be happy to help you. So go ahead, Vanessa.
I'm Vanessa McLennan. I'm a lender with Universal Lending. And I'm here for any questions if you guys have them. Just a quick market update on rates. They have increased from what they've been last year, which everybody knew was going to happen. But they're still on a primaries in the low threes. Investments have gone up higher than that and are probably in the low fours, I would say, but I'd have to run numbers specifically based on your credit and the loan to value and the type of property.
All right, Kacy, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yep. All right. Let me share my screen here. Maybe 1 second. All right. So I'm Kacy Martinez. I'm VP of Operations, and I'm also a licensed broker for TJC Real Estate Management. I've been a part of the group for over a year. I spoke once before. So thank you again for having me. And I'm just here to share with you, just some things that we have seen and things that have changed, and try to give any tips that I can to help you with managing your rental properties. So to tell you just a little bit about TJC, except my slide is not moving. Let's see what's going on. Okay. Give me just a second. Sorry. Nothing funner than some technical difficulties. All right. So to tell you a little bit about TJC, so we are family owned and operated. We manage just over 300 homes in the metro area for individual owners. We are a full service property management firm. We do real estate for commercial, residential, and then we have our rentals. We're actually celebrating our 15th year anniversary this year, so we're very excited about that. So the first topic I'm going to talk about today is how the pandemic has changed our industry. So as everyone knows, it has been a very interesting year, to say the least. So I think in this environment, some people have thrived and just kind of went for it, while others have really struggled. I think that our company, one thing that really helped us is that we've always just been very forward thinking, and we've never been so grateful to be forward thinking as we were when the pandemic hit. So we had a lot of things that were already in place. So it made the transition easier, or anything that wasn't, we were really close, so it wasn't hard. So I just encourage everyone to always try to be forward thinking. You never know what might be around the next corner for you. So a few things, and most of the stuff that I am going to speak about are things that have changed within our, within our industry, whether it be single family homes, in the apartment industry, a lot of things, or whether it just be, you guys will probably find a lot of this stuff that are things that you did. So starting with contactless showing, and I'll tell you that a lot of these things, we as a company actually are probably going to continue on with them in a lot of aspects, just because we found that it actually has made our lives easier. It's been easier for our clients. And contactless showings is the first one. So we invested in a program, and then there's also a some software and a camera that you can get that does 360 photos. And so we've been able to do virtual tours, and it's actually been relatively inexpensive, and it's really easy with these cameras. You set them in the middle of the room, you push a button, and it takes a picture of the whole room. And you can actually buy these types of cameras on Amazon. If anybody wants more details, you can feel free. I have my email address. You can reach out, and I'd be happy to share some more information with you about it. But you can get them anywhere from about $300 to $400, and they have been life-changing for us, which is great. We also did, in some instances, FaceTime showings. And then if we had a home that was vacant, we use a company that's called Codebox, and you can actually get these code boxes, and then you can send lockbox codes directly to a prospective tenant, and they're only good for 2 hours. So that way they're able to get in and look at the home on their own. So we found all of this stuff. Some of it, again, we were already doing, some of it we implemented. The other thing that we did implement for showings was that, and we wouldn't do any in-person showings. And of course, this was as we got further along in the pandemic, when everybody wasn't quite so scared and we kind of knew better what was going to happen. Is we would have people fill out applications and get approved before we would do any in-person showings. So that really helped to count, to reduce the number of people that were going into homes. The next thing is contactless move-ins. So of course, as we all know, it's always amazing when we get the opportunity to, meet our clients and, help them and help them with the move-in process and make sure that they're, well educated and comfortable. That when COVID hit, that just wasn't optional, and really most people didn't want that anymore. So we started leaving keys and their full welcome packet. We really beefed up our welcome packet just with a lot more information. And we would just leave all of that stuff for them in the home. And then we either would provide a code for them through a garage door code or a lockbox code. So that way they could enter the home whenever they needed to. And then again, it's actually the same company that we're doing virtual tours with, but we installed a web-based tenant inspection. And so, which is a fantastic, it's been fantastic. So now they can just go on to their smartphone, they get an app, and they're able just to do a full move-in inspection of the home, upload photos, make notes, and then we can go from there. So that has been great, and also has saved everybody actually quite a lot of time, which is wonderful.
Kacy, I did get a question on what your what kind of lock boxes in the 2-hour code that use the 2-hour codes, and what's the cost with that?
Yep. So Codebox is the company that we use. And I believe there's a couple of different ways of going about it. I believe if you purchase the box, it's around, I would haven't checked recently, but it's probably 60. I would say it's probably double the cost of a regular lockbox. And then I think the service is like $1.75 while it's active. And if it's not active, they have a way to suspend service for you. So yeah, they're really easy to work with, a great company. We've had really good luck with them. All right, so the next thing is maintenance. For us, maintenance was definitely a big shift that we had to come to a quick reality that we were going to have to make some serious changes, especially at the beginning of COVID. And so I don't have this noted. This is just kind of a little piece of information. So the first thing that we did when COVID hit is we went through all of our service requests and we literally labeled them red, yellow, and green. And that's kind of immediately how our maintenance team started working. Was anything that was green needed to wait, and anything that was yellow, we were going to do our best to try to help the tenants through it. And then of course, red, we just were going to have to figure out a way to be able to safely get into the home to take care of stuff. It worked really well. As you can imagine, the backlog of work orders was a little daunting at first. And then we had the people just stopped putting in service requests, which was probably more daunting than the overwhelming number of service requests, because we knew that at some point there was going to be an influx again. But we just really stuck with it with tenants. We had a lot of communication that went out. We did videos, all kinds of stuff, just to try to help them to feel comfortable and to make sure that they were still putting in service requests, and just kind of explaining how the process was going to work. So that way we at least knew what we were going to be dealing with when it was time. We also started, we were calling it Telebob. Bob was our handyman. And so instead of telemed, we were doing telebob, where he actually was calling tenants, and we were just doing a lot more in-depth troubleshooting with tenants. And, in some cases, how to, some tenants are very handy and others want absolutely no part of it. And so we were able to identify those people. And again, we actually still do a lot of this, identify those that wanted to be helpful. And of course, nothing that could hurt the property, no water, no plumbing, electrical, none of that stuff. But if there was just some basic things, then our maintenance technician would then just get on the phone with them and walk them through kind of how to fix it or how to temporarily fix it until we were able to get there. And then something that we started the process, we haven't actually jumped into this head first, but a lot of people in the industry have this kind of a big thing right now, is to do virtual inspections, which is very interesting. So just mid-lease inspections, and the way that most people are setting it up is that you would do a Zoom or a FaceTime, and you have a list, and this is how we did it. You kind of have a list of things that you will prompt them to make sure that you see a lot of the house. So, can we see underneath your kitchen cabinets, and just have them FaceTime with you and show you all of the things that you would be concerned about. If there's leaks or things aren't, working properly. And there's a lot of ways and things that you can do to be able to see the house and its condition during those inspections. So that's something, and right now it's a big buzz, and I would just suspect that a lot of that will stick around, just because it's so much easier to schedule, 10 calls and do 10 inspections than it is to be able to actually physically go to 10 different places. So, so I thought that was a very interesting thing that has come from the pandemic. Next thing is for us that we had to do, and I again think that it's just something to be thoughtful of, especially who knows how things will continue on. But we found that we were having to pay our maintenance guy, 45 minutes worth of time to stand in line at Home Depot to get in the door, because of the limited capacity. And then of course we started running into things are harder to come by and harder to get. And so we started keeping more inexpensive inventory on hand. And just a little side note on that, of course, there's administrative costs that come along with that. We have storage, we have people that have to track it, we have to keep track of it. And so we just put a little bit of a admin fee onto the actual cost. But we found that for owners, it was actually about the same price, because they were spending a lot less money by us not having to wait in the lines at Home Depot, and we're ordering in bulk. So just another thought, just keeping inexpensive inventory on hand, just to save yourself time, mostly, so that you don't have to find yourself back and forth at Home Depot and waiting and stuff being out of stock. Next thing was,
Kacy, I just had a question. When you talk about inventory, are you talking about smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors? Like, what are some of the things that you found?
Yeah, garbage disposals, flappers, especially, for anybody that's managing more than one home, we try to look for those things that are pretty universal across the way. Light bulbs, we have a lot of like the cartridges for sinks, for faucets, stuff like that. So yeah, just smaller things, but just really saved a lot of back and forth. The next thing was, or is, I think this is going to be our like the hot topic for the next who knows how long, is managing tenants. So again, we and I highly recommend just being flexible and thinking outside the box, and just remembering that everybody has a different situation at this point. We have some people who are thriving in this, during the pandemic. Obviously, we have a lot of hardship that's happened. We have people who have lost family members. It's all over the place. So just being flexible and open-minded, And again, I think that this is something that has been great for us, that we have that ability to be flexible. And again, I can't stress enough how I would say just to try to be flexible and creative. So a couple of things that we have done that have worked out well for us, and again, I think this is things that we're just going to have to continue on with, is when we've had tenants. So we personally have been very fortunate that we haven't had a lot of tenants that have not been able to pay rent. But in this situation, we definitely have had those who, instead of paying on the 1st, it's been the 14th or the 20th, but so they just trying to make ends meet. And so one thing that we've done that we've been pretty successful at is when their leases come up, we understand that there might not be somewhere for people to go if we were to ask them to leave, and especially if they have no money. And so we've tried to be thoughtful in all of that. And so we've offered some of these people to go to month, in the case of our leases, periodic tenancy, and extend them that way. So that way we can ask them to leave at any time, and they can leave at any time with proper notice, of course, instead of just kicking them out or having them sign an extension and then us be stuck with them and not be able to evict them because of all of the regulations that are in place. The other thing that we found, and this is again just in trying to find ways of being creative if we need to have people leave, is doing non-renewals for people who, when their lease is expiring, but giving them a call and having the flexibility instead of it just being a hard, you have to leave. We actually have had this work out to our favor in 2 situations where we just had some tenants that just struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled. And we got this inkling that if there was a little more pressure, that maybe they wouldn't be struggling so much. And so we sent them a letter of non-renewal, gave them a call and said, look, if you can get this figured out, we'd be happy to reconsider this notice. And it's actually worked out great for both of them. So now they're both on periodic tenancy. They're paying on the 1st of every month like they're supposed to, and it's worked out great. So one other thing I just want to mention with that month-to-month extension is we also found that in the tough months, the Octobers, Septembers, even when these people's leases were ending, that if we were just to have them go, it wasn't going to work for anybody, right? They were going to have nowhere to go, and we were going to have leases coming, or we were going to have homes available in the winter months. So with the month-to-month, and at any time, then we're able to give them notice to leave, or if they get back on track, then great, we can offer them lease extension. And then the other thing with managing tenants that we just started doing was, and again, everybody's situation is different. Some people just have, understand some people just have one home with one tenant, some people have 2, 3, 5, is we started doing virtual tenant retention events. So we happen to have somebody in our office who is a great artist. And so we just started offering painting classes. And we did for Valentine's Day, I think it was, we did these cute little wreaths, just the craft. And just doing some stuff like that, just to get the tenants together, give them something to do, because we're all sitting at home. And it was actually really, really great. And so I would just encourage you that if you have a talent, that you either, offer something up to your tenants just for something completely fun. We did with all of our events, we went ahead and put together packages with all the paints and supplies and all of that, and just delivered it to their door, so they had everything with them. The other option would be is there's been a lot, as I'm sure you know, of companies who have kind of come out of the woodworks that offers all kinds of online things. So if it is just if you just have one tenant or one family, you could also offer them some of those things, like Yaymaker is one. They've been great of doing all kinds of things, escape rooms and stuff like that. So just trying to help people kind of break up the being stuck at home.
Casey, someone did ask a question. They have a tenant that they've been working with that was problematic, but now it seems like they're not leaving. And I don't know if you want to add any more detail, but have you run into that situation of a tenant struggling, can't pay, and then they're not leaving? And kind of what have you been doing with that?
Yep, sure. So so I guess it kind of depends. I'd be interested to know when the lease is up, or are they in the middle of the lease?
The lease reverted to month a few months ago, and we've let them be month to month. And it's actually not even so much about not paying rent. They're not taking care of the property, and it's just going to be in our best interest to not renew.
Yeah.
And so we posted a notice to quit, and they're sort of questioning that too, but
So yeah, so the good thing about posting the notice to quit for non-renewal is it is what it is, right? It doesn't really matter. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's not, there's not really any, it's pretty black and white. So I think that that's a great idea. That's what we've done, post the notice of non-renewal, the notice to quit, and then if they don't leave by that time frame, then you can just file an eviction with that notice. So honestly, that's probably one of the best, I would say one of the best ways of getting somebody out, which is exactly why we did some of those month-to-month leases. We do have a situation going on right now, same thing, somebody that it's a home that an owner gave to us with the intentions of needing help getting them out of the house. And so, yep, so it's the same thing. We posted the 30-day notice because of course it's a covered home and they didn't pay. And so we did a walkthrough of the house and it's not in good condition. And so we are going to go, because she's in the middle of the lease, so we'll go the route of a notice, a demand for compliance to get this stuff taken care of. And then we'll try to file eviction through that. Or to be honest, we might try the keys for cash thing. It'll be our first of the pandemic, and I've heard that it's relatively successful. So we'll see.
so is that an incentive to move? Is that
Yep.
what you're saying?
So yeah, you just pay them. You pay them to leave, pretty much. And in our case, we're going to try first, I think, just to wipe all their debt. Tell them, you know what, if you leave, if you can sign an agreement that you leave, then you will just wipe all of the rent that you owe. But in some cases, people are actually paying people money to leave. There are two things about that, in case you decide to go that route. Of course, if you have the ability to have an attorney to kind of help you through that process, just to make sure that everything goes smoothly. But the most important thing is make sure, of course, if you're going to give them cash, that you do not give them any money until you have keys. That's the whole point, right? They give you keys, you give them cash. And then the other thing is you want to make sure that they sign an agreement, a notice to vacate agreement, saying the date that they'll be out. Because then if they don't get out, the whole point is to get them to sign that notice saying when they'll be out. Because then if they don't get out, you can file with that notice. So those are the two really important things. Even if you're not going to do keys for cash, just if you can get them to sign an agreement saying they're going to be out by a certain date, no matter what the circumstances are, you can file on that paperwork. So.
And is there a name for that notice that they'll be out by a certain date?
No, it's so we use Cheddar Solzer, and they have kind of a standard form. You might actually just be able to get on their website. I don't know that you actually have to log in to get it, and it's just I think it's just, they call it like a notice to vacate form of some sort. And I would reach out to them and make sure that you have all the details. I don't know that it doesn't really say much. It really mostly just has the address, who the leaseholders are, when the lease started, and pretty much when they're going to move out, and then just a little bit more language there. So.
Can you repeat the name of the law firm that you?
So it's Cheddar.
It is Cheddar. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Any other questions or comments? And feel free in the chat if you guys have anything that you want to talk about, anything that has changed the way that you've done business because of the pandemic. Lots of creativity has happened. I know that, which is great.
So Casey, what are you seeing in terms of tenant demand? Are you seeing, since COVID, are you seeing that there's more demand for your properties, or the demand has changed? And are you seeing kind of a difference in tenants and how you do background checks?
Yeah. So during COVID, so in 2020, we actually broke many records, company records. In regards to rentals, it was really busy, really busy. And then in February, it completely got quiet. It was probably the slowest month that we've ever had, which was kind of interesting. And as soon as March hit, things really picked back up again. I would say the biggest thing that we've noticed is that nobody wants to commit to anything. Our tenants don't want to sign renewals. They don't want to give notice. Our prospective tenants, they want somewhere to live, but they don't really want to sign anything. And I think a lot of it has just been kind of the waiting game one. I think with the presidential election, of course, that always, causes people to not to have some uncertainty anyways. And then to add the pandemic and are we going to get vaccinated? Are we not? Are we going to head back to lockdown? Are we not? And so I would say that's been the biggest thing that we've noticed, especially recently. But it is starting to get better. You can tell. I would say almost daily, we're starting to see it get better, and we're really, really busy again. So, okay, all right. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to get and keep good vendors. So maintenance is a huge passion of mine. I learned very early on in my career that if I did not have good vendors, I was never going to be successful because I could not do all of it on my own. So I'm very passionate about this, and I can talk vendors all day long. So if anybody feels passionate like that, I'm happy to chat with you. All right, so finding a good vendor. And so as everybody knows, it has become harder and harder and harder to get vendors. I don't even know if they're good vendors, just to get vendors in general, just because there's so much work to be done and just not enough, we just don't have enough contractors. So a few things that I would recommend is seeking out referrals from neighborhood social media groups, friends, family. I think that it's really important if they will return your phone call. Well, one, if you call and have to leave a message, I think it's important that you say how you receive that information, that you had a friend or you're on this specific group and you come highly recommended. And then also, I think that it's important if you do get a call back from them that you interview them. And I'm just meaning have a good conversation with them about how they do business, about how many employees they have, how their scheduling works. If they typically are able to come when they say they can come, how far out are they, on scheduling. And then I'll just say with the little caveat is that remember that they might be interviewing you too. And I say that just because, again, at this point, a lot of vendors, they don't need business per se. And so, if you come across as going to be a hard customer, then they might decide that they just don't want to work with you. Next thing is let them know how you can help them. Meaning talk about kind of your process. I pay bills, this way. If you want a check, I can do a check. If you want a credit card, I could do a credit card. And then also let them know, if you have a circle of people that, or you can say things like you're a part of this group, right? And, you would be happy to refer them to other people. Understanding how their business runs so that you guys can work together. I think that's important too. And we run into this sometimes. And again, it goes back to how they schedule and how they, kind of their terminology and their language, just to make sure that when you're ordering something from them or a service that you guys are all on the same page about what it is that you need and trying to make it easier. Something else that I'll just make a quick note of is also if you can send pictures and descriptions and stuff like that, and if you can tell them ahead of time you're happy to do that, then that is making it sound easier for them as well to work with you. And then just one other piece of advice, and this isn't always the case, but businesses that have multiple employees are going to be able to get more work done faster. So, we are all about local businesses, family-owned businesses, so we try to partner with them. But if you can find people that have multiple people on their teams, it's going to help you in the long run. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. All right, so keeping good vendors, once you've got them, once they've decided to work with you. So I can't say this enough, being kind, being respectful, I think is just so important. I think we used to be, live in a time where we were in control and, you're going to do it my way or it's the highway or I'll find somebody else, and things have just really changed. And so I think it's really important that you're very kind and build strong relationships with them from the beginning. And honestly, just as you would with somebody new that you just met, I think that's just really important. The next thing is just sticking with them. If they know that every time you have a plumbing issue, you're likely to call them, they're going to be much more likely to, to pick up the phone and to help you. And I always say, and especially in the time of a crisis, like when we had the major snowstorm, we had some situations that happened, but if you're loyal to your vendors, when there is a crisis, and there's 500 people that need their services, they are definitely going to go to the customers. They're like, oh, well, these guys are loyal to me, and I know that they're going to call me whether there's a crisis or not. And so you are going to get taken care of more quickly. Next thing is just being respectful of their time and processes. Try not to cancel last minute, be flexible with their schedule. So instead of calling, I need you here at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, if it's possible to say, if I could have you here Wednesday or Thursday, or, anytime on Wednesday is fine. Just things like that, just little flexibilities. Paying them promptly, of course, that's a big deal. And then just keep giving them business and keep referring them so that they know, again, you might not have a plumbing issue, but once a year, but if you're referring them to other people and they're calling about plumbing, they're going to remember you when, again, mostly in these times of crisis. And then the last thing is that if you have concerns about their quality, voice your concern, but be flexible. So it used to be, again, somebody did poor work for you or something you didn't like, and all right, well, you're fired and I'm not paying you, and that's the way it is. Well, this day and age, that might not always be the way that you can handle it. Of course, if they're terrible vendors, you don't want them anyways. But if there's been something, you voice your concern, you talk about it, you do everything you can to try to have, to make sure that you're taken care of, but also be flexible and understand that they also have so much work and so much going on that things are going to happen, and you just have to decide where your comfort level is with that. All right, same thing. Any questions, comments about that? And feel free in the chat if you'd like to put who some of your favorite vendors are and why.
Kacy, I do have a question for you. Have you had some vendors not following like COVID processes and not masking up around tenants? And like, how have you put some kind of given criteria to your vendors to say, hey, this is what we expect if you want to work with us during a pandemic?
Yep. So right as soon as the pandemic hit, the first thing we did is we reached out to all of our vendors and we let them know what was expected, what we expected of them. For the most part, they all were going through the exact same thing. And so, so they had no problem with that. And we actually did have a situation, of course, where we had a vendor who wasn't, following proper COVID protocol. And of course, our tenants let us know right away. So yes, and we got it addressed. And then that was the only, knock on wood, that was the only issue so far that we've had with that. And our vendors have been really good about still doing work for us, which is great. We didn't have too much like, nope, sorry, we're not going into people's homes anymore. One thing that we did with our sprinkler, we were turning sprinklers off. Yes. So our contractor that does that, he's an older gentleman, and he definitely was more concerned and happened to go into every single person's home. So we got super creative and it worked out great. We had our tenants actually help us. And so we had them do the prep work. We had a video, we had them do some prep work for us. And then when he got there, he had to knock on the door. And they knew when he knocked that, they could keep their distance, and he had to just say, okay, I've turned the water on, or you turn the water on, I'm going to turn the sprinklers on. And then they could work together with him staying outside, them being inside. And it actually worked out really great. Okay, anything else? All right. So my last topic today are just some tips for managing your rental property. So when I was putting together this, I was just kind of going through thinking to myself of just what are some of the things that we do that I find, make us more profitable and make us streamline more, and things that I feel could be helpful for you guys individually as well. And I think one of the biggest things that we find is that I actually sometimes am kind of shocked by is how long it takes for people to get homes ready between tenants. So that vacant time in between there. And so a lot of these tips are to kind of help shorten up that time frame. All right, so we'll start with, we're going to just start back with tenants. So doing your due diligence when screening tenants, I think, is more important than ever before, as we all know, because it's really, really hard to get them out if they end up not being good. So just make sure that you feel really, really good about the tenants that you're putting in your home. The next thing is in your lease agreement. So a lot of people have, kind of noticed this trend, but it definitely is happening. So, you don't have to have your leases expire in the middle of winter. You don't have to do a 12-month lease. You don't have to do a 9-month lease. You can do whatever you want. So I definitely recommend that you consider that. For us, we don't have any leases expire between November 15th and February 28th. So that way, we don't have an influx of homes that are, needing to be rented, over Thanksgiving or Christmas. The next thing is that your lease doesn't have to end at the end of the month. And you'll find that a lot of places actually don't do that anymore. So if they move in on the 15th, their lease ends on the 14th a year later or whatever. And we have found for us, and again, if you just have one home, then I think it's different about how this can affect you positively. So if you have one home, I think it's good because a lot of other people are doing it. And so if you have something that's going to be available on the 15th or the 16th or whatever, it's much more common now that you're going to find people that need to move anytime during the month instead of just at the first of the month. And then if you have multiple homes, the biggest advantage to this is that you don't have all of your homes expiring at the end of one month. And so the first, that first week or so of the next month is just miserable. The next thing is I highly recommend that you have in your lease to allow for showings while it's occupied. So that way when a tenant gets notice, you have the ability to show the home while they're still there. Requiring tenants to have the home and carpets professionally cleaned prior to move out. So to me, this is becoming more and more standard, and I just think that this is such a great thing to have in your lease. So pretty much when the tenants, so they say they're going to move out on the 15th of April, they're required to be out of the home, to have the home professionally cleaned, the carpets professionally cleaned prior to that move out date. So that way, when you get the home, that's already taken care of. You're not losing days while you're trying to get the house cleaned and the carpets cleaned, as well as the big expense. Conducting a pre-move out inspection when your tenant gives notice. So this has been another game changer for us. We implemented this a few years ago and it's been great. So as soon as our tenants give notice, we go into the home, we do a pre-move out inspection. And that's just to get a really good idea of what's going on in the house, right? Are we going to need paint? Are we going to need to have the floors replaced? Are the blinds broken? And then it gives us that entire notice period to be able to get vendors, get pricing, if we want to decide, we're not going to do carpet anymore. Now we're going to go to all vinyl plank flooring. It gives us time to, what product do we want to use? What color do we want to use? And then you can also get on vendor schedules. And so you're not calling them last minute, right? Oh my goodness, I need you to do this. Now you have 30 or 60 days to call up your vendor and say, hey, can you please come? And you schedule it for the day after the tenants are supposed to be out. And that saves you a lot of vacant time as well. And then finding vendors that can work quickly. So this kind of goes back to what I was speaking of earlier when I said, if you can find businesses that have multiple people on their team, they can send teams of people over to get things done faster. So a good example, and I see this a lot, is with painting homes, right? Of course, our homes are very big and that is a really big project. But if you have a company who has multiple people on their team, they can send over a crew of people and they can paint your house in a day or 2 days. Max for us usually is 2 days. Most of the time they can get houses painted in a day because they bring in a crew of people and get them all done. And then same thing with flooring replacement, right? The vendors that we use, they can replace carpet in 1 day. They can put vinyl plank in 1 day. They can restain hardwood floors in 1 day. Obviously, it's a longer process because you have to dry and sand and all of that stuff. So I just encourage you, if possible, to find vendors that can work quickly. It'll save you a lot of time. And money for a vacant time. Let's see, so we're kind of moving away from getting homes ready, but my other big thing, we see this all the time, is that whenever it is financially possible for you, I always recommend that you replace something over repairing it when it's old. We see this happen so frequently, and less now because we've made some changes to how we manage this, but people will pay for a repair, and then a month later, something else will break because it's just an old item and they just waste a lot of money. Or same thing, you call to have an appliance repair company out and it costs, $80, $90, $100 for them to come out to tell you that the repair is going to cost more than the replacement. So if you, look up lifespans of things when they break, and if it's past its lifespan, I just recommend save yourself a trip charge and just buy something new whenever it's possible. I understand that's not always possible. The other thing is never forego preventative maintenance. Just taking good care of your home will pay off so much in the long run for you. Have a great attorney that knows property management. I can't say that enough, especially right now, just because there's just so much going on that you really need to have attorneys that are really, in the middle of our world and understand fully what is going on and what consequences are going to be. And then the last thing, my last tip is getting involved. Stay up to date on proposed legislation and voice your opinion to decision makers. I think more than ever in the state of Colorado, this is so terribly important. And to be completely honest with you, these legislators, they want to hear from you guys. They kind of, there's like this stigma around, that our industry is all these big apartment communities and, they don't, that's just kind of what they go to. And so they really need to hear from landlords that, own just a few homes, because ultimately, you guys will be the ones, and us, we're the ones that suffer, right? From stuff like this. So really important that you stay involved with that. I don't know if you guys have heard, but recently there's a kind of a coalition. It's the CLLC is what it's called, and they have formed, and they're trying to become more the voice of the single family home landlords versus, because there's NARPM, who really represents the property management firms such as ourselves. There's the AAMD, who really represents the apartment association, and they just felt there's a huge gap of individual landlords that own single family homes. And so they created this coalition. This is going to be their first full year. Last year was kind of when they got started. So you can quickly Google it and you find out more information. I was on their website this morning, and it's not, they're just so new that it's not, 100% great, but it will give you some good information. You can become a member because of course they're completely a nonprofit, and so it's all the memberships are what's kind of keeping them going, and they've been able to hire a lobbyist who has been sitting at the table with the apartment association and NARPM now. So I think that's it for my tips. Anybody have any tips that you would like to share? Any questions, comments?
Casey, I did get a question on the chat from Karen, and she asked, has your criteria for new tenants changed given the moratorium and work from home tenant?
So our criteria has not changed. We haven't needed to make any changes, but I will tell you that when we start getting close to where our threshold is, we maybe in the past would be more, if we did a double deposit, we feel comfortable with this. Whereas now we are really leery of that, just because it goes back to that, how are we going to be able to get them out if this does not work out? And so I would say that we have just been less flexible for anybody that is close to meeting our criteria.
Okay, any other questions before we let Casey go? Last minute. Casey, I just want to say you gave us just so much really great information and tips and techniques that I hadn't even thought about. So I really appreciate that. We did get one more question, and that is, are there any standards for dogs and pets that you put in place?
So we're just trying to think through if there's anything. No, we actually, there's a company that we use, and I don't know if it's if they offer it to individual owners or not, but it's called pet screening. And so we have taken them, we've kind of taken that whole thing off of our plates. And now anytime somebody does have an animal, they actually have to apply through pet screening, and then they get a PAW score. And the PAW score is set off of our criteria, but that determines the level of deposit or non-refundable fee or whatever, however you want to set it up. And also they deal with all of our ESA animals, which is great. So they go through a process with them, and we are completely out of it. So we don't have to deal with any of that. And then the other great thing about pet screening, and they're trying to get bigger and bigger, is that you can report bad pet owners on there, and it's become like a national database, which is great. So again, it might be worth, I'm not sure, like I said, if they work with individuals or if it's just with companies, but you know, even if they don't, I would be more than happy to kind of talk you through their process so that you could kind of create your own, you know, pet screening per se, if you felt that you needed to.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole session just on pets.
Yes. Pets
And
are tough.
ESA.
We always tell
Yeah.
people, you know, we always tell owners when they come to us, of course, everybody says, I don't want pets, no pets. And we always just have to remind them that one, I think, what is it, 62 or 63% of all Coloradans have pets. And so if you do not allow pets, you are immediately eliminating 63% of the rental pool. So you have to weigh that. And then the other thing is that if you're never going to be moving into the home again, you know, you really should think hard about allowing pets because it's a part of people's life. So.
Yeah, and then Casey, I have how to keep up with legislation source. What was that organization to give input to
Yep.
legislators? Yeah. And, you know, Barbara, we will, I think the next session, I'm going to see if I can have a speaker come in and talk about all of this legislation coming on and where we can go to have our voices heard. So I think our next, our May meeting will be on that. But yeah, what was the source again, Casey, of this nonprofit?
So it's the CLLC, and it's the, I thought I wrote it down here. We always call it the CLLC. It's the Colorado, let me just look it up here. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I have it right here. And Amina, if you would like, I'm happy to get you the names of a couple of people that are pretty heavily involved with the CLLC and see if maybe they would be interested in speaking.
Yeah, and I'll also send to our Facebook page, I'll send some of this stuff, but I'm going to go